To welcome everybody to the Dallas lecture series, and thank you for coming. This lecture series is co-hosted by D2 Counseling and by the Unity Church of Dallas. We are clearly not in the sanctuary of the Unity Church in Dallas. We moved to the Zoom format about March of last year when COVID hit, and it has proven to be very successful in the Zoom format. D2 Counseling is a counseling center in far north Dallas. We are located at Campbell and Preston. We do individual, couples, families. We run a lot of groups. We are very much believers in experiential therapy. So we focus a lot on the experiential therapies as well. One of the big things that we have focused on, particularly since COVID has hit, has been mindfulness and meditation and inner work that we can all do that improves directly our immune system as well as peacefulness of mind. And so we're delighted to have Denette here to speak with us tonight. If by chance you're here and would like CEUs, we do have the opportunity to provide that. I will put up an address in the chat where you can send an email, and we will offer you the process to get CEUs for participating tonight. Dina, what else have I forgotten?
Just that we are grateful to Unity for co-hosting this with us, and that we are going to just let this situation unfold into the spring in terms of where we will land, if we can end up back in the church in the spring or, by the summer. And we will be checking in with all of you to see what your preference is in terms of coming in and meeting face to face like we used to, or having some sort of hybrid, like Daniel said, where we can accommodate both. The only other thing I'd like to say is that D2 Counseling, we're a group of 6 very experienced, seasoned therapists, and we really are broad enough now to cover the age span and a wide variety of issues, of psychological issues. So I think we're becoming more and more known for doing groups, and as we isolate in COVID, we find the value of groups increasing, and we are offering more groups. So I just want to put that out there, because if you're feeling isolated, you don't have to think that you're, in need of therapeutic services. Everyone can benefit from having a small group community where they can just talk about what's going on with them. So feel free to call us or contact us. That's all I wanted to offer.
Thank you. And so with that, we're going to let Denette Mann, thank you so much for participating and leading us tonight. And I'll let you introduce yourself, and thank you again for presenting tonight.
Yeah.
And I understand that you will make me a host so that I can pull up my PowerPoint.
We hope so. Hold on just a second. Let's see if I can figure out how to do that. I think you have it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I will make an introduction to myself, but what I'd like to start with is what we call in the self-compassion program a soft landing, which is just an opportunity to, now that we're here physically, just to bring all of ourselves here and to kind of take stock of where we are emotionally and physically, and just bring all ourselves into the room. So I would invite you all to get into a comfortable position and begin to breathe more slowly, perhaps deepening the breath and slowing it down. Closing your eyes if that is comfortable, and if not, finding someplace low that you can focus on to prevent distractions. And I close my eyes. So that's what I'll be doing. So just bringing myself into the room. Begin to notice the seat that you're sitting on, whatever it is you're sitting on. If you're standing, notice your feet on the floor. If you're sitting and your feet are touching the floor, you can notice that as well. The support that you have from the earth, from the chair or couch or whatever it is you might be standing on. Letting sounds come and go as will. And just noticing yourself, maybe even giving yourself a little smile of welcome. Welcoming yourself to this place and this event. You might notice sounds come and go. You might feel whether you're comfortable in the room. Is it hot? Are you cool? Are there places that, like on your feet, that are comfortable and places maybe that are uncomfortable? And just noticing without wanting to change anything necessarily, but just taking note. And then turning inward and doing a quick of the body from your head down to your toes. Taking notice of places that feel pleasant, lingering there for a moment to enjoy that. There may be places that feel neutral. You can find those places. And then there's possibly places of discomfort or maybe even pressure or pain. Notice those. You can try breathing into those areas, sending healing, comforting breath into that space to see if perhaps it will loosen a little bit. But trying overall to accept whatever you find without judgment. And that this is what is in this moment. It's easier to do that if you focus on the pleasant parts that you experience and put less attention on the uncomfortable or unpleasant places. You might want to set an intention for how you hear and listen and participate in this presentation, what you would like to learn, whatever might be important for you. And then coming back into the room where you are and opening your eyes and joining the group. I noticed that most of you are choosing to turn off your videos. I'm going to put up my PowerPoint in a moment, so that will probably be just fine. It would be nice to see you if you wanted to ask a question. I don't know that I've met very many of you, so it'd be nice to put a face to the name, but you do what is most comfortable for you. So my name is Denette Mann, and I've been in private practice as a counselor since 2003. I focused on children, adolescents, adults, and families. And that's still my focus. I do more family now. And I do telehealth, and I've also got some people who are coming in person, which I'm trying to be very careful. I have very solid rules in place to try to keep everyone safe. But I enjoy my work very much. But in the course of being a therapist and needing, what do they call it, continuing education credits, I came across a program that I took in 2013, I believe it was, called Mindful Self-Compassion. And I guess you can say that it changed my life, because I've been engaged with it ever since. So it's actually become like, it's part of my therapy, but it's also something that I do extra on the side. My practice is in North Dallas, close to the Galleria. And I have a website, just DenetteMann.com, if you want to check out information about me. In 2013, self-compassion was still, I didn't really know what it was. And I don't think very many people did. My understanding is it really sort of came into being around 2010. And the main researcher for this topic was Kristen Neff, and still is. She still does a lot of the research, but it's booming at such a rapid pace right now that she's not necessarily the major person anymore. There's so many people doing research on this. But in the beginning, it was her baby, if you will. She's a professor at the University of Texas at Austin. She was a meditator and began doing this research on self-compassion. And she and Dr. Christopher Germer, who is a therapist in Harvard University, knew each other, presented together, and had the same passions, and decided one day when they were traveling together that they needed to put a program together, because they couldn't reach the number of people they really wanted to be able to reach. And it became clear that this was something that people were craving. The interest was very high, and they wanted to meet that need. So they developed this program, the two of them, and they still teach it. They still do lots of integrated things within the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. We have teachers now in many places, and I'll go ahead and share my screen, get the PowerPoint up. I'm not the best at getting the PowerPoint to take up the full screen, but we'll do the best that we can. So I'm going to hit play when I can find it. Maybe I'll need to excuse this. As much as I say I've been working with Zoom, this is the one area that's sometimes goes smoothly for me and sometimes doesn't. I'm going to see if I can make this. Let's see, slideshow here. There we go. Now, can you see that? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about the role of mindful self-compassion, but I'm also going to explain it. So there's my address and my work number. What else did I want to tell you? So I think mindfulness at the time that I took this class was getting to be a much more popular term. People knew more about it. It was coming out of the more spiritual realm and into the more secular, and the benefits of it as a practice within itself was becoming better known. But self-compassion was not so well known. And I was just very grateful when I took the class, because the addition of the self-compassion made a big difference to me. I've taken the MBSR intensive program, and I loved it, but the mindful self-compassion made a much bigger difference in my life, which is one of the reasons I think I continued to pursue more and more information and training until I became certified, and I'm still doing that. I was lucky enough to take my first class from Dr. Kristen Neff and Dr. Christopher Grimmer. And I just want to tell you just briefly a little bit about the program. It is an 8-week program, and it has a little silent retreat in the middle. It is offered internationally now. It is very popular, and we have teachers from all over the world, and the numbers just continue to grow. I teach this as a coach in my therapy practice. I also use it as part of my therapy, and I teach it in classes. Now that there's the 8-week, and it's been around since about 2010 or 11, I think, they now have rollout versions for different populations. So I'm certified to do a teen program. There's a short course now in mindful self-compassion. There's a specific program for healthcare workers to prevent burnout. And they're working on, there's a one for couples. There's one specifically for men, although I find men sign up for my class, so I haven't really noticed that as a big problem, although there's usually more women. But so there really is an intentionality about this, what Kristen and Christopher want to do, and that is to make this as accessible and as good for every population as possible. We want to give everyone opportunity to know about this, that they can use it in their life. So let's see if I do this. So this is just a picture. This is just a slide that shows some of the classes around the world. You can see how it's in very, very different parts of the world. I don't know if we're in every country now, but this class is probably being taught in almost every country in the world. And we have teachers from all over. When I sign on to go to a meeting of teachers or I take a training, I'm usually with people from at least 15 different countries, which really enhances the richness of this program. And the outpouring of compassion for self and others really is palpable when we're in these, even online. I mean, definitely in person, it was an amazing experience, but even online, we found the same, that we've been able to accomplish a lot of the same sense. So I wanted to start with the formal definition of mindful self-compassion. And mindfulness is part of the phrase because mindfulness is the foundation. Without mindfulness, self-compassion can't follow, because we have to know what we're experiencing in the moment to know when we need self-compassion. So mindfulness is something that we aim for as much of our awake time as possible, because we know from research that the more time we spend in mindful awareness, the happier we are. If we've let our minds wander off, we tend to be less happy because we're regretting, we're worrying, we're creating problems and focusing in on whatever problems we feel like we have. So the opposite of mindfulness is over-identification. So one of the ways that Kristen goes into the explanation of mindful self-compassion is what the components are and then what they're not. So knowing that we're suffering while we're suffering requires mindfulness. It's a prerequisite. And it allows us to turn toward painful things that happened, painful feelings as they occur. And one of the things that we do in the program is we give you formal practices that you can do on your own to enhance your ability to be mindful and to become more comfortable with the practices. But we also give you lots of informal practices that you can use in the moment that you're experiencing something, so that you're not carrying it around your entire day, waiting till the end of the day where you can actually do some self-care. So that's one of the differences between self-compassion and self-care, is that self-compassion is something you can give yourself whenever you need it. Mindfulness is a balanced state of awareness. We don't suppress or avoid what we're feeling, and we don't get carried away with the storyline. So often when we are not mindful, we take something that happens and we make it into a story, right? The easiest comparison, because I do a lot of parenting coaching, is my child flunked the math test. Oh no, they won't get into college. They won't get a good job. They're not going to be able to support themselves. So we run the story along till we create a real catastrophe, right? Well, with mindfulness, we're accepting that this is what's happened in this moment, and we go no further than that. So mindfulness is the foundation of self-compassion. The second component is common humanity. And common humanity is simply the understanding and acceptance that as human beings, we are going to have good things happen. We're going to get excited. We're going to have fun. We're going to be happy. We're going to be content and pleased and all of those things. But we're also going to be in pain, physical and emotional. We're going to have grief. We're going to have struggle. We're going to have failure. We're going to have disappointment. And that these things occur with every human life. Therefore, when it's happening to us, it just means we're human. And the opposite of that, we call it, let me make sure that I get this right. Isolation. And so, I mean, I like the term. It doesn't flow easily for me in my brain, but it does make sense. And here's why. If I have something bad happening to me, if let's say I lost a job, our tendency is to believe that we lost the job because there's something wrong with us, that it's something that wouldn't happen to somebody else. It's something about us, and we want to hide. And we tend to want to isolate. We don't want people to know. We don't want to be seen in that. And so we isolate a little bit. And common humanity says it happens to everyone. So we don't have to hide. In fact, we can ask for support, because anyone that we would turn to has had the same kinds of experiences. So I hope that makes sense. That's why self-compassion is also, through research, shown to be the antidote of shame. Some of that isolation practice that we can have when things are going really badly for us can turn into shame. So the common humanity piece and the kindness that goes with that really work to overcome shame. Then the third component is kindness. So being in the moment, noticing that something is happening that we would rather not happen, and we're feeling some emotional pain, maybe some physical pain. Then we just turn to ourselves and treat ourselves with some kindness, give ourselves what we need in that moment to help us tolerate and manage whatever we're experiencing. And that's not an easy thing. A lot of us don't even know how to do that. Like, what does that mean? How do I treat myself with kindness? And we have lots of practices. I'm going to give you 2 tonight that you'll be able to try out and take with you. Hopefully that'll get you started. But it starts with just asking yourself the question, what do I need right now? And it could be that you need some kind words, that you need some kind, gentle touch. Maybe you need to experience some humor, some lightness. Maybe you need to reach out to a friend. Perhaps you might want to read something inspiring. If it's in the moment, you may simply want to give yourself some comfort. So I don't know if you can see this part of the screen, but over here on one side, these three components make up what we call loving, connected presence. And I actually have a small group of graduates of the MSc programs that I've been running for the last 3 years. And we are trying to live more deeply into the self-compassion philosophy and go even deeper. So taking this idea of loving, connected presence to the deepest, most rich part that we're capable of getting to. So that's the formal definition. And then the informal definition is, treating ourselves with the same kindness we would treat a friend when things go wrong. So here's a little activity that we can engage in for just a moment. I want you to think about this scenario. You've purchased something, for the women, it might be an expensive jacket, a very unusual jacket that just really caught your eye, was much more than you would normally spend, but you buy it because you just fall in love with it. The men might choose a jacket, like a bomber jacket or a leather coat or whatever might really perk your interest. Just use your imagination and engage in the idea of purchasing something that you can really fall in love with. And you go to dinner with a good friend and they immediately comment on how nice you look and on this piece of clothing that you've purchased. And you let them know, well, I really spent more than, intended to, but boy, I really do love it. And then you go on and you have your dinner and you talk and carry on with the friendship. And after having a nice 3-course meal, let's say, you get up and leave and go home. So you forgot your jacket, you forgot your coat, and you wake up the next morning and realize that you left it at the restaurant. And you call your friend, frantic. What does your friend say to you? How do they respond? Just think about it, who you would talk to and what you think they would say to you. So I'll give you a second to think about that. And then turn it around and notice, what would you say to yourself? Probably should have done it the other way around. Like when you first wake up and realize that you've left it. And let's say that you wait till the restaurant opens and find that indeed it is not there. You've truly lost it. You can't get it back. What do you say to yourself? And how different are those two? So if anybody wants to share what they noticed, I've turned off the screen for the moment. I think, maybe I didn't. Yeah, I think I did. What was that like to look at those two scenarios? You can also think about, what would you say to a friend who had done that, who had lost their jacket? Anybody?
Hi, I'll go. I'm Carolyn. Hi.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you.
I immediately noticed how critical I was of myself, but we did the first scenario first. I was really loving, kind towards my friend, but when I turned it on myself, I was pretty self-critical about losing it, about being forgetful.
That is by far the most common response. And thank you for being willing to speak up. That was brave. I appreciate it very much. And you're not alone. There's research shows that about 75 to 80% of us are much more critical toward ourselves than we are to others. So especially in this culture, where in this culture, we're individualistic. So we get all the credit and we get all the blame. And since we tend to go negative, just that's the way we're wired biologically, we're very hard on ourselves. So about 15% treat themselves equally to others, and the rest treat themselves better. At least that's what the research shows. So if you notice that you are more critical towards yourself, a friend would be towards you, then that would be, you're in the majority of at least people in our culture. All right, so I also wanted to share with you that there's two actually different parts to self-compassion. The one that we tend to think of is the yin, what we're calling the yin side. And that's the comforting, the self-compassion that you would give to a friend who's going through a rough time. I'm so, I'm here for you. I'm so sorry that's happened to you. That must be really hard. What can I do? That being with. The other approach that is also self-compassion is what we're calling yang compassion. And that is more of an active form of compassion. And Kristen Neff uses the analogy of a mama bear. You don't want to mess with a mama bear. So when we're wanting to protect someone else, protect ourselves, when we are motivated to do something that we believe is in the best interests of ourselves and others, that is called yang compassion. And there's actually different physical stances with both. With yin compassion, you almost see somebody standing with their hands on their heart. With yang compassion, you're standing with your feet a little bit apart and your hands on your hips. So setting a boundary would be a form of yang compassion. Like that I will not do. Going to a protest could be a form of yang compassion. Working on behalf of people in other parts of the world who are suffering from malnutrition or some catastrophe, that would be yang compassion. And that is where Kristen's focus is right now. She is about to release, I think, significant amounts of new research on this concept of yang compassion. So I also want to say that mindfulness is something that we've said, we want to have as much as possible. Self-compassion, either kind, are things that we need when we need them. We don't need self-compassion all the time. We only need it when we're hurting in some way, or we're wanting to protect or take care of someone else who's hurting. So that's an important thing. Another important concept to understand about self-compassion is that we don't practice self-compassion to make bad feelings go away. Bad feelings are part of being human, and we're all going to experience them. It's about showing goodwill and kindness to ourselves as we go through the tough things. So if we try to use self-compassion to shut off our bad experiences, it's not going to work. And we're going to be sabotaging ourselves. So those are just a couple of ideas to keep in mind. Because it's easy to misunderstand that, I think. So I felt like it would be helpful. There's a question and answer period at the end of this. And so I thought what I would do is let the questions come to me around how this works to help with the recovery community and what aspects are particularly important. But what I did for this particular slide is I just showed the overriding areas that have been found to be the benefits of not just mindfulness, but the self-compassion. And we are finding with the research that while mindfulness is very helpful and it's a really life-enhancing activity and way of being, it is not as good as adding the self-compassion to it is. There is an improvement in what we're able to, how our lives go if we can add the self-compassion. So it increases not just the compassion, self-compassion and mindfulness, but it decreases anxiety and depression and stress. And you can kind of understand why that would be. And this was maintained for over a year later. And now they have research that shows it maintains longer than that. In general, it increases our positive states and decreases our negative ones. So we're in better frame of mind more often. We're in negative frame of mind less often. It's also associated with overall well-being because we actually, with self-compassion, we take care of ourselves better. We go to the doctor, we exercise, we eat well, because we're showing care about ourselves. We're not diminishing our value, we're acknowledging our value and taking care of ourselves. And we also know from research that, we're, especially women, but that's a generalization, but I think in general it's more true, but certainly many of us are caregivers. Now that can be in the caregiving business, it can be within the family where you are taking care of a disabled child or just a sick child, or parents or friends. I mean, we do a lot of caregiving. However, it's not just in those situations, it's in all situations that we are able to be kinder and more authentic when we are self-compassionate to ourselves than we are when we're not. So it's very subtle, and some of you may completely disagree with me, and I would understand that. But if I am giving kindness and I'm doing for someone else and I'm ignoring my own needs, there's a little bit of resentment, sometimes a lot of resentment, depending on how long it goes on. Whereas if I'm taking care of myself while taking care of someone else, that's not going to happen because I'm filled up. I'm getting what I need and I can give then to others. I put on here that, the team program has been shown to increase life satisfaction and decrease anxiety. And I suspect that you've been reading about this. I think they said now that COVID has definitely contributed a lot to this statistic, but I understand that at the current time, they're finding that 1 in 4 teens are considering suicide. It's very high. And even before COVID, anxiety was considered an epidemic among adolescents. So it's not a small thing to be able to decrease their anxiety. So this is about that inner critic that I like this slide, so I put it in here. Let's choose a different voice. We don't have to be critical. And one of the things that I did not put in a slide is that the research shows a lot of things that counter what we sometimes come to believe, that, for instance, if we are self-compassionate, that we won't be motivated to go to work. Like we'll just sit around and watch TV all the time. And actually that is not what research shows at all. It shows that we're actually more motivated, because if we're treating ourselves well, then when we are interested in something, we're not as worried about failure. We're not as worried about something going wrong because we know what to do for ourselves when that happens. And so we take more risks. We are more focused at work. There's just an awful lot of benefits. Some people believe that it makes us weak, and actually it takes a lot of strength to be self-compassionate, especially when we're doing it in the face of people who don't understand. So there's a lot of that research that you can look up as well. And then I mentioned this a little bit earlier. It is an antidote to shame. And Christopher Germer, this is his big topic. Dr. Neff is working on the fierce compassion. Dr. Germer is very focused on the shame aspect. That there is a lot of shame in society, and human beings are frequently shamed publicly, within families. It happens a lot. So to have this be something that can actually address that is an extremely beneficial aspect of mindful self-compassion. It is also the antidote to burnout, by the way. If you happen to be in a field where burnout is high, self-compassion prevents burnout and alleviates it if you're in it. And there's research on all of this. So I don't have all of that available for you tonight, but I can certainly direct you to where you can find it. I thought I'd spend just a moment on just the class format. This is not about the classes, but I wanted you to at least know about them. They're long classes. There's about 24 hours, I believe, in the 8-week class. The short class is much shorter. It's about 16 hours, I think. But it goes fast. There's a lot of material, and we do formal meditations. We learn informal practices. We do exercises. We have inquiry for people to really reflect on the experience of the practice and how it affected them. We have poetry and videos that we bring into this, and discussions. So it's just a big mix. And I have not had anyone yet that did not feel very, very pleased with their decision to take the course. So now the good part, I speak a little bit less and you get to experience. So there's two things we're going to learn. We're going to learn the soothing touch is an informal practice, and so is the self-compassionate break. Now, there's a difference in that to learn the self-compassion break, it initially a little bit more formally, but as you begin to know what it is included, it's something that you can do on the spot in the moment, and it doesn't really take very long. So we're going to start with soothing touch, and you're going to need to watch me. So I'm going to stop my share. All right, so I'll be moving my my screen up and down so that you can see different. Hey, Bob. So you can see the different movements that I'm going to make. So soothing touch. Our bodies respond to touch the same way from ourselves, the same way they do from someone else. So nothing feels as good as a nice hug, right? From somebody when you really are feeling down. So we really respond emotionally to physical touch. So I'm going to walk you through several different ways that you can give yourself soothing touch when you need it. And the idea is to try each of them and notice whether you like it or whether you don't like it or you're just neutral. And the hope is that you'll find one or two that you really do like. Okay? So Daniel, I'm just going to ask you, is it okay to ask if people would be willing to start their videos?
Yeah, you can ask them. I mean, if they're uncomfortable, they can say no.
True. And if you're uncomfortable, absolutely take care of yourself. Wouldn't be a self-compassion talk if I made you, right?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So one of the things about all of us getting on our video is that it can really interrupt the quality of the presentation. So if that happens, I'm just going to ask people to click off again.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we have a few people who've joined us. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to start. The first one is one hand on your heart. And take just a moment to notice that and feel that. Sometimes we haven't given ourselves that kind of notice in so long. It's an emotional experience to actually notice our own heart, right? Beating, keeping us alive, caring about us. The second one is then just to put the other hand up so that you've got both hands on your heart. And then there are some people who need a little more pressure in order to get the benefits. So you can make a fist with one hand, put it on your heart, and then just cover it with the other hand. And see how that feels. You know, and you can play around with the pressure and see what feels best for you. Okay. The next one is one hand on your face. I believe this is one that a lot of us do naturally, right? And then you can also add another hand and see what that feels like. Okay, I will tell you, teens prefer this. In general, that's their favorite. All right, so the next one is to just rub up and down your arm. Just kind of rub and comfort your arms. And if you're one of those people who needs more pressure, then you can just kind of squeeze, right? Just kind of squeeze down and see what that feels like. I actually add this one because I think this one feels good. I think any place where we feel tension and like our neck, I think, you know, it holds our head up all the time. And I think it just kind of appreciates sometimes that extra support. So that can be comforting. There's also just holding yourself, giving yourself a hug. And this is one that is a good one. I tell people, if you're in a public place and it doesn't feel comfortable doing some of the others because you feel like it might get noticed and commented on, this one is usually fairly safe. And, you know, finally, just hand in your lap, which is another kind of one that doesn't get noticed very easily. You can, if you're sitting down, you can just kind of hold hand with the other. And Susan might have been in this class. I don't remember. Were you in the class with the woman that came up with her own way of doing it? I'll explain it and you'll either remember it or you won't. So she came back the next week and she said, well, here's what I like to do. She said, I'm in business and I'm with men all day long and I'm in these high function meetings and all that. So I didn't want anything to be noticed. So I think of one hand as me, and when I'm needing support, I give it to myself. Mm-hmm. So she'll just hold her hands together. And I liked the symbolism of that. So I've added that to the different ones. Okay. So I wonder if you found, those of you who have started your videos, did everyone find one that they liked? Maybe not everybody, but most of you. If you didn't like any of the ones that I tried, you can always explore. Like you might rub your legs and see how that feels. So there's lots of options, and I would encourage you, if any of these did not feel what you would like to feel when you're wanting that kind of soothing touch, to play around with some other ideas to see if you can find what works best for you. Okay, that is soothing touch, and that is an informal practice. You pass somebody in the hall and there's somebody you know and they ignore you, or they give you a look, they don't say anything, and in your mind, you've just been rebuffed or you've been chastised or whatever. Hand on heart, oh wow, that hurt, that was hard. 5 seconds, move on. So it doesn't have to take very long at all. And if what you like is hand on heart, go to the bathroom, right? Or go in your office and close the door, or whatever you need to do to give it to yourself for that little bit of time. Okay, so I know since we have Q&A, I'll go on, I guess, to the next one, which is considered a self-compassion break. So this one is one where I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and be sort of in a meditative state. So get comfortable and then close your eyes and begin to think about a situation that is either you're dealing with right now that's uncomfortable, or something that's just been a recent situation that you found difficult. Could be a health problem, could be something in a relationship, a work problem. Maybe you were treated a certain way because of your age or your ethnicity or your position in the company. There's lots of things that might work for this. Not choose a really big issue, since this is your first time, and I won't be there to help you navigate this afterwards. You want to pick something that's not going to be overstimulating to you. So something in the mid-range of intensity. So as you bring up this situation, I want you to see, hear, and feel your way into the whole issue. To the point where you can feel the discomfort in your body. And when you've done that, notice where in your body the discomfort is. Make contact with that part. And then say to yourself slowly and clearly, this is a moment of suffering. The other possibilities can include all kinds of things, but some might be this hurts. This does not feel good to me. Maybe simply ouch. This is mindfulness. Next, I want you to say to yourself again, slowly and clearly, suffering is a part of living. There are other options on this as well. I'm not alone, could be one. Others would feel the same as I do in this situation, or simply me too. This is the common humanity piece. And now, if you would, put your hands on your heart or wherever you feel most supported, and say to yourself, May I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need. That is the self-kindness piece. You might ask yourself, what quality of self-compassion do you need right now? Do you need the yin compassion or the yang compassion? What language works the best? May I accept myself just as I am? Or, no, I will not allow myself to be harmed in this way. Or maybe even, may I have the courage and strength to make a change? And if you're having difficulty finding just the right phrase, imagine that a dear friend or a loved one is having the same problem as you. What would you say to this person, heart to heart, without giving advice? If your friend were to hold just a few of your words in their mind, what would you like them to be? What message would you like to deliver? Can you offer that to yourself? And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes, and that's a complete practice. So it has all the elements of mindful self-compassion, and it meets the needs that we have when we're suffering. I'm just going to mention this briefly, and then I'm ready for questions. If any of you, having heard this, have an interest in the program, I'm doing some free introductions. They're a little different than this. And one is Friday, January the 29th from 12 to 1. One is on Friday, February the 12th from 12 to 1. And one is Saturday, February 13th from 11 to 12. So if you're interested in just learning a little bit more about the 8-week program, you can tune in and find out for free. And then the next course that I'm offering is going to start on Sunday, the 28th of February. And I'll share my screen one more time because I've got some resources for you if you want to do more, if you want to look at more of the research, or if you want to, oh, well, I forgot about this part. Sorry. Just quickly, because I know we're close to being out of time. You know, so mindful self-compassion is about taking care of ourselves when things are going poorly for us, when we're suffering or in pain of some kind. But that same concept can be used to help us embrace our lives. And we do talk about all of these things. Gratitude, which you're probably very aware of, but we talk about savoring good experiences so that we internalize them better and let them resonate within us. And also self-appreciation, being willing and able to notice the things about ourselves that we feel good about. And people have great difficulty in doing that until I remind them that when you appreciate something about yourself, by definition, you're also showing appreciation for everyone who helped you attain that. So the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion is where a lot of the information coming out of the organization is located. They really do have lots of ways for you to become engaged in this program, this concept. One of the things that I feel like is so wonderful about the way they run this organization is there's something called Circles of Practice. That's just for the public, and it's donation only. It's free unless you are willing to donate. It's run by teachers like me. We do it for free. It's 45 minutes It includes a short little meditation, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of inquiry. And they run 45 minutes. They run 7 days a week, off and on all day, because we're trying to meet all the different time zones, because people are coming from all over the world. When I've done them, we're up to close to 90 people now showing up for these. And they tend to get to know each other. And it's just the most loving, connected, present experience that I can imagine having. Everyone is kind and interested in everyone else, and they show up, they say hello. And when we say goodbye, everybody says goodbye by name. So you can imagine the chaotic but wonderful noise at the end with everyone signing off and saying goodbye to everybody. And that's free. You just sign up. You don't have to have taken the course. You don't have to have done anything. You just join. If you've taken the course, there's a circle of practice for graduates that's a little more, has a little more to it, but it's still a 45-minute thing, and it's still, I believe, donation-based. I don't think they ask for any money. If you want to know more about Christopher Germer, his website is mindfulselfcompassion.org, and he has a book called The Mindful Path to Self-Compassion that is excellent. And Kristen Neff, she's the best place to get the research information, selfcompassion.org. Her research on self-compassion is actually categorized by topic. So it makes it really easy if you're wanting to get information on a specific area of self-compassion to go to her website. And I have quite a bit on my website, but nothing like she does. All right. I believe I've taken my time. Is that not right, Dina and Daniel?
Yeah, we've got flexibility. And so typically what we do here is folks can either ask a question by chat, or we can just call out, or however you want to do it. You're kind of in charge now.
I would prefer people to just speak up, but I'll take a peek at the chat in case someone is an introvert and would rather do it that way.
And I'll keep an eye on that for you as well.
Thanks.
Okay. So who's got questions for tonight?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Briefly, sorry. I was going to say this and I forgot. And looking at Susan, I remembered. So there's an effort going on. There's work being done to develop a program. I told you that they're adapting this for different populations. There is one that's going to come out for people in recovery. But I wanted you to know that Susan and I have worked together to see how we thought we could take the 8-week course and adapt it for the recovery community. And she was gracious enough to help me with that and co-teach if we can do it at a time when she's available. So just to let you know but we've had that interest and we've worked on that. So if you have a question about it, she's online too, so she can help answer.
I have a question. Can you speak to, I love this class. I've taken it twice, and the second time around, I was telling Denette when I sat down to meditate, there was this loneliness that would come over me, and I didn't understand why. It was easy for me to meditate in an AA meeting, but with people around me. And so she took me to a place where I met I met part of me when I was small and disconnected from my feelings and disconnected from myself. That changed everything. From then on, my ability to have compassion, it was like for the child that didn't get it. And I'm sharing that because it was so profound for me. It's like learning how to reparent the part of us that's screaming inside, but we keep telling her to shut up and sit down, and and learning how to have compassion for that shamed little girl, but you have to know she's there. And that helped me so much. So I don't know if that's a common issue with people that are normal or, or just people who drank for all those years and drank it away. So you might want to speak to that.
Okay, I appreciate that. That is not just, I mean, I think that is a much more common situation for people in general than is acknowledged, because like I was working with someone today whose brother died when she was 10, and everybody was in so much distress that she had to figure out how to get through it on her own. And so she's discovered her 10-year-old self that's been hidden and tucked away, trying to keep everything at bay. And so it's a common occurrence for many of us. But we know that, I believe that you would all agree with me, that with an addiction of any kind, eating, alcohol, any of the things that we do that are self-harming are actually in the beginning self-medicating. We're trying to deal with emotions that are too hard to deal with, and so we're finding something that'll make us feel better. And so what self-compassion does is it teaches us a different way to take care of those feelings. But often in doing that, we do meet parts of ourselves that we haven't been aware of. And it is true. Susan's experience is not unique in that it is very transformative to realize that really there's a younger part that is trying to get your attention, has important things to say to you, needs comfort, needs attention, and wants to be part of you and not isolated. And that is extremely healing. So in the MSc class, we say it is therapeutic. There is a reparenting piece to the whole self-compassion program. If you think about what you're doing, is you're learning to treat yourself differently than probably the way you were treated growing up. So it's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. So we're very careful to tell people this is not therapy. And therapists have referred people to my classes for the therapeutic benefits of learning self-compassion, but they continue to be the therapist. So I appreciate that. Does that touch on what you were thinking about? Is this a question for me? Are my groups in person? Joyce, is that a question for me, or is that? It's probably to me. Right now I'm doing virtual. We were doing in person until this all came up. And I teach my classes at Unity. So hence Daniel and Dina, we crossed paths there.
I'm sorry, I just got my audio on.
Oh. So
yes, for you and also for Dina and Daniel. I'm just, I know people that are looking for in-person groups without masks that are, tired of the hiding with all the COVID.
We have a huge room, Joyce, that we are able to distance over 6 feet between each person. So we are doing our groups in that room, and people are unmasked.
Okay, that is wonderful to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And how often do they meet?
Most of our groups are weekly, but we also have groups that meet every other week.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice to have a big room like that.
Yeah, we're very lucky. It's being loaned to us. So we're very grateful. I do have a question if nobody else does. Are there any other questions? I love this topic, Denette, and I'm a UT grad, so I also love Kristen Neff. And when I first heard her story about her episode on the plane with her 3-year-old child, and how difficult that was, and how that was the beginning of her mindfulness, self-compassion work, I really resonated with that. And I use it in my therapy to help clients regulate. So it's beyond just that I'm being kind to myself and being soothing to myself. It really I think it's a really powerful self-regulation tool, even if people are unaware of suffering. You know, just changing that inner voice through these principles, that loving, connected presence, I think is just so powerful. Mm-hmm. So do you find that as well? I didn't hear you really talk about it in that way.
Well, I do believe that it's emotionally regulating, mm-hmm. because you're meeting a need rather than trying to just let it be. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't ramp up.
Yeah.
And that is part of how I use it in therapy as well. I will say that when we're running the classes and we're doing some of the exercises and people are getting in touch with some of the times when they haven't been treated with compassion, it can be highly emotional as well. One of the things we say is love brings up everything unlike itself. So in the class, as you're beginning to know what it feels like to be kind to yourself, you're likely going to bring up a lot of memories of when you were not treated well. And that can be quite emotionally powerful. Mm-hmm. So it has emotional regulation aspects to it. But I think it's important to learn with a teacher that knows how to deal with that. We talk about concept called backdraft, where you just become overwhelmed with emotion, and what to do if that happens. And we also talk about these concentric circles. We need safety, but we also need growth. That's where we challenge ourselves and learn and try new things. But if we try to push ourselves too hard, we get into overwhelm. And when we get into overwhelm, we want to go straight back to safety. So I think, and that does help. That helps people notice where they are in that circle so that they can make a decision about, do I keep going or do I need to pull back? Do I need to go into safety and let this be for a while? So there's several aspects to what you're talking about that are part of the program. I hope it wasn't confusing to give you 2 or 3 different aspects of it, but I appreciate the question. Anyone else have a question about are you all clear on the relationship to learning this skill with staying in recovery?
Denette, one thing I would ask is if folks wanted to get more information from you, or if they wanted to get into contact with you, what would be the best way to do that?
My phone number is my email, or you can contact me if you go to my website. There's information about the classes that I teach, the presentations that are coming up. And you can sign up and contact me from there.
Tell us again what your email is, and I'll type it into the chat so everybody can see it.
Denette at DenetteMann.com. The only thing you have to worry about is the spelling.
Yeah, this may be a challenge for me.
How about if I do it?
That'd be great.
I can do that.
Probably
and I'll put my, let's see, where's everyone?
And while you're doing that, Denette, did you say your 8-week classes are all on Zoom still?
Mm-hmm. Right now they are, we keep talking about tentatively thinking about bringing them back into in person. And about the time we do that, I see something on the news about how many new cases there are. And I'm so scared of contributing to somebody getting it that I can't do it. So,
well, you know, I think this might be a good format just to say if there's anyone interested in doing a class specifically for those in recovery, you can let Denette know, give her your name, and we can follow up with you when and if we start one for people in recovery. I think it would be really cool because we already have a connection. Whether we know each other or not, we know each other. So I think it'll be a really profound course. So if you're interested, let us know. And if and when it happens, we'll get back to you.
We'll get to work, yeah. The other thing about taking the course, if you're interested in the courses, the one thing that's nice about doing it on Zoom is the course I have right now. We have 14 people and only 4 from Texas.
Oh, wow.
And that national flavor is really fun. It's really gelling so nicely. So I really get a kick out of that. The accents are different and the weather is different. And if you're interested in these circles of practice, I really encourage you to look into that because those are amazing. I love to be a participant as well as a teacher to those.
Yeah, and I don't know what your personal beliefs are with the COVID and all that, but I think there's quite the demographic that's ready to stop being distanced and stop masking. And so I think you would find that audience if and when you're willing to do it. That would meet live in person.
I get the vaccine.
I don't believe in the vaccine.
It pays to be older.
I'm in healthcare and could have gotten it way before you did, and I have not gotten it. So, but it's personal choice.
Anybody that's not sick of it, it's just whether or not you feel like you can do it safely.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's all everyone's personal choice, but I think there's quite a few people that would be willing to meet in person when you're ready.
Denette, where do I locate the circle group? You were talking about the online Circle of Compassion. How do I access that? The 45-minute classes online?
You know what? There's a man named Ben Weinstein from, he's in Bangkok right now, and he's in charge of it. And okay. I was sending the information out to all my MSc graduates, and I couldn't find it. So I asked him about it, and he sent me the link. So I'm going to pull up my email real quick and see if I can find that. Yeah, I turned it off because you can hear that. But let me see if I can do that real quick.
Sure.
Because then I can just put it in the chat and you can all have it.
Dina, how long do your group therapy last? Is it 5 weeks, 2 months?
Dina. It's forever.
Forever?
Yes, you sign up for life.
I love it. That's my kind of group.
Most of our groups are ongoing. So we ask that people commit to 10 weeks, and that gives the opportunity for the group to really gel and people to develop trust for each other. And then after the 10 weeks, the option is to stay or to process out. And I think we may have had one person, Daniel, in 5 years that has opted to process out of group after the 10 sessions. So people get really connected and tend to stay until they've done a certain amount of work, and then they process out.
Now these are male, female groups?
So we have all male, we have all female, and we have 3 co-ed groups. And the co-eds are people that really want to work on the relationships with both genders. Those are really powerful.
Groups are in person.
Yes. So all of our groups now, we have the technology that all the groups are hybrid.
Oh.
So people can opt to be on Zoom for their own safety and protection, or they can come in, and we generally have, what do we have, Daniel? About a 50-50?
Yeah, it changes on a given day, but generally 50-50.
Yeah, usually half are at home, half are face-to-face. And like I said, we have, a really large room. We have fans set up. We've got ventilations. We're about to get filter systems. So, we're all trying to make these decisions based on risk every day. So we really honor whatever anybody chooses.
Do y'all take temperatures?
No, we don't. We don't. We've got enough data to show that that's not indicative of much. We ask that if you don't feel good, you don't come.
I put the link in the chat for those who might be interested in checking out the circles of practice.
Great, thank you.
And you just go to that site and sign up. It has, now the one thing you have to be aware of, and I've made this mistake many times myself, is look at the time zone and make sure you convert it.
That's
because
great.
It's often GMT time, Greenwich Mean Time, I guess. Sometimes it's UTC time, but then it's never Central.
Okay.
Sometimes it's East or Pacific, but never Central. So you always have to convert in order to make sure you don't miss it. I signed on just the other day, and this very nice person that was running the meeting said, well, you're not the first person to do this, but we just finished. So I'm really trying to get better at, I can't do UTC time. I don't even understand that. So
I have a question about your group that you're going to be starting for the recovery. Oh my God.
Sally.
She's
let's stop her video.
Stop her video. Can you do that?
I did.
You did.
Oh, wow. Powerful. Good.
When you guys start, you're going to stay focused on people in recovery and how these principles are applied to specific issues around recovery. And that'll be all recovery, alcohol, drugs, process addictions. What are you calling recovery? Substance, basically?
In my mind, it was substance.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's a good place to start.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think the way we're looking at it, we've looked at the material. I think Susan and I both looked at our calendars. Now that may have changed because that's been, I think that was pre-COVID, right?
Yep.
So we'll have to make sure that we know when we're available, but we're basically waiting on interest.
Yeah. So really talk around, because if we get Denette, how many do you think would be a good size?
8 to 10.
8 to 10. All right. If we can get 8 to 10, let Denette know, put it out there for whomever, and we can get going. I think it's a great resource to have in addition to We talked about having some sobriety before you sign up. I think it's good to have, what do we say?
I think we decided 6 months, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good place to start. You know, it's enough space that you can not vibrate.
Well, you need some success under your belt and a sense of your own efficacy with what you're doing, because you're learning some good practices, but you're going to get probably activated a little bit.
Yeah.
Denette, we want to thank you very much for tonight, and everyone take a glance at the chat if you'd like to check out the links or a way to connect with Denette. And then again, if you would like CEUs for tonight's presentation, send us an email at info@D2Counseling. And we'd like to thank all of you for participating. Next month, we have on February 16th, I show the date to be discussion led by Andrea Tabor. I may not be pronouncing that right. She's a director at the 12-Step Ministries House in Dallas. I'm delighted she's been able to make time to speak to us. And
right here with us tonight.
There she is. Okay, she was labeled as the 12-step room 4. So I wondered earlier, so incognito. But we're delighted she's coming, and her topic is the 12-step path for families tolerating discomfort along the path of recovery. So we're delighted you're coming and look forward to that. And again, thank you all so much for being here, and we'll look to connect with you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denette.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dina. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Great job.